Introduce myself. I am Kendall Klaus. I am the chair of the Committee on the Environment through AIA Austin. Um, I work with Perkins and Will here in Austin as a designer and sustainability advisor. And then I'm joined by with Ashley Griswold. She is my co-chair. If you want to introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you, Kendall. My name is Ashley Griswold. I'm the co-chair or chair-elect for next year for the COTE group. I am an architect with Lake Flato here in our Austin office, and I'm excited to have everyone with us today. Thanks for being here.
All right, and we are joined we have three special guests today. Jess, Joe, and Rachel, and I'll let them introduce themselves. They will be presenting on the U.S. Department of Energy Solar Decathlon.
Hi, my name is Joe Simon. I'm an architect based in Colorado who works for the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and I have been engaged with the Solar Decathlon for most of my adult life since I was an undergraduate student at the University of Illinois, and supporting the construction drawings, renderings, and details of a house in 2007, leading a student team in 2009, and then supporting a number of editions both in the US and across the globe for the Solar Decathlon in the years since, really careful and thoughtful about how we can engage building science and renewable energy into high quality architecture. So excited to speak with all of you today.
Great. Thanks, Joe. My name's Rachel Romero. I'm a project leader and engineer at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory as well in Golden, Colorado. I have an undergrad in mechanical engineering from Hope College in Holland, Michigan, and a graduate degree from CU Boulder in architectural engineering. I have been at the lab for 11 years now and have been on the Solar Decathlon for 6 years, specifically in the design challenge, which we'll talk a little bit more about today. And I think that's pretty good. Jess?
Great, thank you, Rachel. Hi, everyone. My name is Jess. I received my undergrad mechanical engineering degree from the University of Alabama and my graduate degree from the same program Rachel mentioned, the University of Colorado Boulder in their architectural engineering program. I've been in NREL for almost a year and then with Solar Decathlon for the past 6 months or so. And I want to say thank you to both Kendall and Ashley for helping us get this webinar off the ground. We're really excited to be here. And now I'll pass it back to Rachel and Joe to get us started.
Great. So thanks everyone for joining. I'm excited to be one of your hosts today to really talk about the Solar Decathlon and some of the opportunities we think we provide to upcoming building scientists, architects, and engineers, and to talk a little bit about ways that you might be able to engage as well as a mentor, as a judge, as a potential team lead in further studies that you may pursue or other types of activities. We really thank you for your time to speak with us today. So for our learning objectives, we plan to focus on providing some insight into the way that we think that buildings can support equitable communities and some of the work that students have been doing to really drive that change. What's always interesting in the Solar Decathlon is not necessarily what rules and criteria we as organizers write in, but what teams choose to focus on. So years before we put water as a high priority or criteria in the rules, we saw student teams focusing on the importance of water conservation, preservation, reuse, and conservation through all of these different types of activities. We'll provide some opportunities and to understand the methods for getting involved with the upcoming generation of building scientists and architects, whether it's through Solar Decathlon or through other means. We'll talk a little bit about some success we found through this last pandemic of using online tours and engaging with students to provide active visual education to students, the public, industry professionals, construction firms and the like in the success of this program, and ultimately touch on how we believe that the Solar Decathlon 10 contests really relate to the Committee on the Environment Framework for Design Excellence. So ultimately, we'll talk briefly about what is the Solar Decathlon. We'll provide some of the resources that we give to teams to show how we help bring them to a greater level of design than otherwise may have occurred through their academic institutions. Talk a little bit about the structure for the future, both for the 2022 Design Challenge as well as the 2023 Build Challenge. So ultimately, what is the Solar Decathlon? It really is a challenge that tasks teams to think creatively about our climate crisis. We were excited to be joined by Jennifer Granholm, our U.S. Department of Energy Secretary of Energy, in this last cycle, and she tied the idea of our fight against the climate crisis to decathlon, that any one element is important and together you find your success. So it's not just good architecture, but it's also good engineering. It's also good recyclability and reuse and considerations for circularity and some of these different elements. And so really to think similarly to the Committee on the Environment, how do we engage all of these different attitudes or compare all of these different aspects successfully as we think about climate change and we think about the need for high quality housing, high quality buildings all the way through this program. Ultimately, the foundations of the Solar Decathlon have not changed. As some of you may know, the Solar Decathlon has existed since 2002, where it first occurred on the National Mall. I'd like to say that the designs have improved a lot over the year. Our understanding of building science has improved over the years, and the engagement with students, with industry, and with faculty have really changed. But ultimately, it still is a competition focused on university students that is made up of 10 different contests that together challenge students to design and build highly efficient, high performance, innovative, low carbon buildings powered by renewable energy. You'll notice here the colors blue and orange for design and build. Something that we're very excited about is that we now have both a design only opportunity and a local build opportunity for teams to be able to participate in the program with a lower impact on budgets, on transportation, on carbon footprint, and many other ways that the Solar Decathlon has grown to embrace technology, embrace remote learning, and embrace the approach to inclusivity and equitableness as we think about all the different schools that may want to participate in the future of our built environment. So ultimately, as mentioned, we began in 2002. It occurred every other year and challenged teams to think about single family houses. Now, 20 years later, we have over 100 teams competing annually with two challenges, both design and build. We've had over 150 houses built, seen over 2 million visitors, and well over 20,000 students participating in the program overall. We've had many countries, both from the international programs and from our design challenge, who are able to share their ideas and share their approach to housing or commercial building design. You'll see here, we note on the left that we began with residential houses. Now in our design challenge, we also have commercial buildings. Students can work on educational facilities. They can work on mixed use multifamily opportunities, office buildings, and more. And ultimately, we're really excited to see how they think creatively about the different types of buildings that they may be working on as they approach their construction and they approach their careers. So ultimately, how do we connect to the Committee on the Environment goals and different elements? We recognize that we each have 10 goals. We each focus on design excellence, and in some ways, we see how much these overlap. With the Solar Decathlon, we have contests like architecture and engineering, but also reliability and resilience, cost effectiveness, presentations. How do you communicate your designs? How do you think about temperature and comfort? How do you think about functionality? How do you think about water use and all of these different elements? And it's really exciting to see how shared our goals and consistencies are through all of these different elements. But ultimately, we're here to build the next generation of building professionals. With that, I'll turn it over to Rachel to share a little bit more about why we may love the Solar Decathlon and think you should too.
Thanks, Joe. Great introduction to the Solar Decathlon. So in building this program, we've recognized that in order to be equitable and ensure that everyone can fairly compete, we need to provide specific resources to build this workforce. And so first of all, that is really a solid understanding in building science education. And so we want to, before students start competing, we want to make sure we've laid a strong foundation in building science as they work on their designs. So we put together a training that is led by industry experts where teams can learn the fundamentals of zero energy buildings design. And it goes all the way to the basics so that teams understand every part and piece as they go along, and they're not missing any of the fundamentals to do the more advanced concepts. Additionally, we also have tests of their knowledge with comprehensive quizzes in our training. This training is publicly available, and we're really excited to have this. So some of the topics that we cover: zero energy design principles. We look very specifically at the building envelope and HVAC design, lighting and plug loads, and then student-led construction and fundraising. Those are just a few of the topics that you'll find in our building science education. And you can see the images on the left is kind of a look into that training. It is in smaller modules and little snippets of video in like the 5 to 10 minute range to kind of meet the new learning standards of today. So we're very excited about that. We'll be continuing to expand the reach of our building science education. And it's not just for the students. We had, in fact, this year we had a professional arm of the program that included entry to mid-level professionals. And we recommended the building science education to them, and they said that it was incredibly valuable to their experience as they competed in that program. So some interesting facts. You can see the impacts of the building science education. Over 3/4 of our students would not have received any high performance building, sustainable design, or building courses without our training. So this is a vital part of participating in the competition. It also shows that many schools, if they do offer some sort of courses in building science, they still include this material. And sometimes they take the course also as an elective. So it's important to continue offering this. So many felt also that their coursework at their university was not adequate to support their work in the competition. And ultimately, the work in the competition is real life work. It's design, what they're going to experience when they're out in the real world. So we want to continue to support them. This year, we also had a mentor program. This pairs current teams with alumni mentors who provide technical and non-technical feedback. This is just another resource for our students, and we try to really encourage our first-time teams to get paired with a mentor. They will help on project direction and deliverables, and they share experience and best practices. You can see some of the quotes from past participants, how it really was valuable on both sides of the mentorship partnership. Over 80% of our students found the mentor program to be helpful and constructive to their team. And here's some more examples of feedback from our mentors. The last competition cycle was the first time we were implementing such a program, and we look forward to having this more as we go through the 2022 and 2023 competition years. Design Partners is really a great opportunity as well. This is another resource we offer. So any organization that has a planned project in their building portfolio that would like to work with the collegiate team to develop a zero energy design can participate. So if you're working on a project right now, you could be a design partner. This really takes a real life project and partners it up with a team who's looking to get that real world experience. Sometimes, and we hope that the relationship is valuable in both directions. The design partner gets to understand maybe research technologies or new technologies or innovative ways to look at things in a way that the students have time to do that they may not have to do. The students gain real world design project experience as well as the opportunity to work with the real client. And so there's really a great opportunity to share zero energy best practices and work together. If you're interested in this, you can check out our website or you can contact Joe or I. So I just want to give a quick example of a design partner. This is in Boone, North Carolina. It's a very rural area needing housing for their workforce. With a family of 4 with an annual income of $60,000, an example, students from Appalachian State showed what was possible in this location. And they really set out to help the community build through homeownership. You can see they incorporated PV as part of the design, and they worked with Habitat for Humanity and the local Economic Development Commission on this project. So a great partnership on both sides and a really unique project that came out of it. All right, so we keep talking about design and build, and so I want to share that we talked about one Solar Decathlon, but there are 2 challenges and how that kind of sets up. So there are these 2 challenges, and first is the design challenge. This is an approximately 1-year commitment. In design challenge, teams just design and then present. It's about 1 to 2 semesters, depending on when the teams start. And the teams can compete in both residential and commercial buildings. We do have design partners and mentors, and teams can also participate with industry mentors as well. They just give a presentation, and it's a lower lift. The build challenge, which Joe is going to show you some of the designs from our 2020 build challenge. They design, build, operate, and then compete by presenting their work. This is typically 2 academic years, and it is only residential housing, as you'll see. So with that, I'm going to go into design challenge a little bit more specifically, as I'm the design challenge competition manager. To the students, this experience is so valuable, and they come out ready to be in the workforce. They come out ready to do designs and move forward in that. It's super valuable to their career, and they really enjoy competing. So the design challenge is continuing to grow. We've had over 5,600 future professionals participate, and each year we get a little bigger, and would love if you had a school or your alma mater or something you could contribute, we'd love for you to be a part of the Solar Decathlon. So this year in the design challenge, we are really excited to have brought retrofit housing into the mix. So new housing, they can do 1 to 2 1 to 2 units in a residence, and then retrofit housing, really hitting on that sector of buildings that is going to make a big impact on the energy consumption in this country. We also have attached housing, which is like row homes, multifamily building, can have like kind of mixed use. Office building could include other, somebody asked this week about doing like a theater plus office buildings. And then education building is anything pre-K through 12th grade or any segment of that. So we're excited about all these building types that the teams can compete in. So we're going to share two projects with you that have where our teams have been really successful in working with disadvantaged communities. Almost 50% of our design challenge projects have worked in these communities in the last competition cycle. Our teams really like to have an impact on especially their local community and work with partners there. So this is Miami University. Their project Peace Village was working with a low income area with a high minority population, and they designed 3 apartment types. The project was so successful that they had 4 different types of industry partners. They worked with an engineering firm, a community organization, one architecture and environmental firm, and an energy modeling firm. So they're looking for people like yourselves to interact with in their community. Our next project, this was a great project. This is with SUNY ESF and Syracuse University. They worked with the families and adults in an autistic community, and they were approached after winning in a previous year to work on this design. And they really wanted to help the adults and their families achieve independence and professional care. Some of their design goals were to make the homes comfortable for all by reducing visual stress and background noise. So they focused on that. And this team really learned all the parts and pieces they would need to do a design for this community. They had 6 industry partners that helped them achieve this design, which included building management, engineering, architecture firm, and a construction company. They also really worked with the community and medical professionals to understand the population they were serving. So now that you've seen some examples of the designs, I will pass it on back to Joe for Build Challenge.
Thanks so much, Rachel. So as we have referenced earlier, in the Build Challenge, we tasked students to see their concept all the way through to completion, really understanding, as I'm sure you work with every day, how the way they drew their drawings, understood their details, and put all of these different elements together really matter. How do you get a functional house that is airtight? How do you understand your mechanical systems? How do you work with your foundations, your contractors, your permitting, your local authority having jurisdiction, and all of the other elements to lead to a very successful project? Taking those skills forward, helping them to be more successful in their careers, in developing and delivering really successful zero energy or highly energy efficient projects. Ultimately, we found that the students see them getting exposed and getting experience that are outside what otherwise would have occurred in their studios, in their classes, or in their internships. So really getting them connected with the hands-on learning, whether they're the ones swinging the hammer or working directly with a contractor, they really understand how to take their designs from concept all the way through to completion. So ultimately, this is a 2-year cycle. So right now we're thinking about how teams can participate and complete a house that can be measured and evaluated by April of 2023, so about 2 academic years. Ultimately, we're really excited that for this cycle, we'll no longer expect or require the teams to transport their house to a centralized location. For those of you who are aware of the Solar Decathlon from the past, this really ties to a history where we wanted to showcase these innovations to the public, really wanted to showcase these innovations to industry in a really high profile way. And what we found is that with the advances of technologies, the advances of education, and the connections with the really local and regional solutions that are necessary to address climate change, to address high quality building designs, we were able to focus the teams on building permanently in their own communities. So in this sense, the teams will work with a local site, a local partner to build that house. And ultimately, we will then send equipment to measure the house in its own location. We'll use volunteer observers, perhaps from AIA, perhaps from ASHRAE, or from former decathletes who witnessed the teams operating their house. We conduct a virtual tour of each house to get the virtual village, and we're able to see retrofits now as well. So the University of Denver, for the class of 2020, was able to take a 1950s era ranch and really think creatively about how they would improve its energy, performance, and overall design for the future by connecting with these different types of solutions, installing solar, thinking about insulation, better windows, better layouts, better mechanical systems, and that type of approach, which wouldn't have been possible in the Solar Decathlon format that was established in the past. So ultimately, we're tasking these teams to think about real life problems and solutions. So we saw for Chile, they had to think about designing a solution for low income housing in a community that was devastated by a fire. So ultimately, it was a very hilly site. They had to think about foundations. They had to think about local contractors. And ultimately, for the 2020 edition, teams were faced with the impacts of COVID-19 as well, whether this was on their manufacturers and suppliers, their travel restrictions, and really thinking about how they connect in a fundraising and sponsorship point of view as well to showcase these different innovations. But I think that's much like what most of you may have seen in your business careers. How do you connect and go through these problems and find your way to solutions? Ultimately, we believe that these students are then more prepared for being successful and engaging productively when they work in industry following graduation. So ultimately, we're excited by this local build activity and providing opportunities for firms, for organizations, for committees such as yourselves to be able to work with local universities and think about creating a design that addresses regional challenges in a very climate responsive way. So ultimately, we are happy to answer any questions that you might have about the structure, about opportunities for engagement, about participation. I know some of you who are on this call have participated perhaps as a juror in the past, as a student, team member, or as a mentor to a team. We're always happy to provide those resources for any way that you think you might want to be involved. If you have a connection to your alma mater or to a local school in your area and you think they should participate, let us know. We're happy to have that conversation. If you want to learn more about the building science education and make that available to your staff, to the rest of the committee, please access that building science education as well. But ultimately, Solar Decathlon at nrel.gov, we hope that you are able to think a little bit differently about how to inspire the next generation of students, how to bring them up to success in your own firms, and how to connect with some of the ideas and innovations developed by the students. I'll pause for a moment for any questions that may be raised, but otherwise we'd love to spend a few minutes showing off a few of the houses that were built for the class of 2020 with our virtual village.
I was just going to ask about how it's been through COVID, but it sounds like that's what you're about to get to.
Yeah. So ultimately, for the last cycle, we expected to have our build challenge occur on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. in summer of 2020 in partnership with the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. So we were going to have about 6 houses and 6 exhibits on display as part of that very large festival that often has a few 100,000 people attend. And ultimately, that was not able to occur. And then we also were unable to have our students gather for the design challenge at the National Renewable Energy Campus in April of each year in Golden, Colorado. And so we turned the entire program virtual. So ultimately, the students kept working. They found their ways through their construction challenges, but ultimately they were able to present to judges using Zoom. We were able to have a lot of hands-on experience, discussion points. We used a platform called Remo for a virtual job fair for sort of a poster session. The students were able to move around and chat with each other. And ultimately, we still had a lot of success in connecting our students with our industry professionals, sharing their ideas, identifying winners, and bringing all these different pieces together. So definitely challenges, definitely impacted some of the success for the students as they had to focus on other activities for their personal lives, for their education, and had less time to gather in person on their designs. But we were excited to see everyone present their solutions and ultimately be able to identify winners of our challenges as well. Okay, with that, I'm going to share my screen and show a few houses as well. Can someone confirm that you can see our virtual village?
Yes.
Awesome. So as expected, we had expected to be on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. with several houses, and we were unfortunately unable to do so. But wanting to create this sort of immersive environment where students are able to showcase their houses, whether live or virtually, we wanted to bring that experience together. So ultimately what we ended up building was this interactive virtual village. Please dismiss some of the wonky senses of scale as these houses are fitting in the different elements of the program. But we have 9 houses that were successfully built, and you're able to go in and learn more about those houses as well. So the link we can put in the chat, it's solardecathlon.gov/virtual village. But ultimately, we have information about each house that was built. We have some photographs of the house under construction, of the team that built that, and each team also created a 3-minute welcome video for judges, for jurors, and for the public. So you can watch video as well about the house to see that presentation. So ultimately, this is a 3-minute welcome video that is recorded that is available on YouTube as well, and you can access. And then we also have a student guided tour that's recorded. So if you want to see the students themselves present their innovations and their thoughts, this was a publicly led accessible session where we had about 600 people over the course of 2 days join various presentations by the students to see the tours of their houses and their own presentations like they would do to a jury. But taking that a step further, we used what is often very common now in the architecture industry as well as with the real estate industry to create a Matterport 3D tour of every house that was built. I'm starting with this house with Kansas State because of that question about impacts of COVID. Unfortunately, this team had partnered with a low-income housing developer in St. John, Kansas, a town of, I think, about 900 people in total, to build this energy efficient 3-bedroom house for a low-income family. Their subcontractor that they were working with had their own challenges and construction schedules. And so ultimately they were not able to finish their house by the time that we evaluated it for the competition. But I think ultimately, while being under construction, we have a new way to see how they approached their continuous exterior insulation, their approach to shading, their approach to framing, and some of these different elements to deliver a low cost, zero energy housing solution for rural Kansas. So most of these walls and their kitchen elements, which were ultimately installed, were all fabricated in a shop in the Kansas State Architecture Studio, and then transported to St. John, Kansas to be put together. So all these walls were again prefabricated by the university students. And so to look at a few more, I think we can go to Weber State as well. So this was a partnership where the school worked with a local general contractor, and then the university partnered with our the city of Ogden, Utah, who donated the land and was able to provide for a 3-bedroom, 3-bath ranch style home with a full finished basement. So in our new local build format, we're able to have the teams that are able to showcase some designs that are more appropriate or maybe expected in their own regional communities than a modular house that has to be transported to a central site in participation in the Solar Decathlon. And so all that to say, as this loads, you can see that the teams were still able to have the general public tour their houses. You'll see that we added a number of educational features as well. So as you think about even your own designs or your own successes, this is something to consider how you might be able to convey the latest practices for energy efficiency or renewable energy in your designs. And so as this loads, I'll be able to point out where they did their energy storage. They did things like raised heel trusses, where they thought about their SIPs construction and some of these different elements. But we used all of these tags where the students are able to explain their own features and really showcase their approach to design in the Solar Decathlon competition overall. Rachel, while I turn around here, do you want to say anything else about the approaches or adjustments that the design challenge did for the impacts of COVID as well?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So Design Challenge has come together remotely for the past 2 years, and really has been great because it's allowed us to have a variety of jurors that maybe couldn't travel previously, and involve more students than could normally attend. So our teams have competed virtually, and then we've had a virtual career connection session where teams can meet with various professionals in what feels like a Zoom environment, but in a like conference room style. And have done awards virtually, and just teams have worked really hard. Some of our teams last year never met in person, but really persevered and put together really amazing projects. So I might encourage you to check out our website where you can see kind of some of the final presentations and videos from each of our teams. Joe?
Yeah, so what I wanted to show here as well is that throughout these houses, we also created a K-12 scavenger hunt activity that could be used by middle school teachers or similar, where they would be encouraged to go explore the 9 houses that exist in our virtual village and find things like, where would you find the answer to the question, what powers and charges the car in the Weber State house? And so ultimately you find these different connections and are able to learn more about the designs through that activity. So ultimately, we think that there's lots to learn, but there's also lots of new opportunities to leverage technology as we think about communicating the opportunities of energy efficiency and renewable energy on addressing climate change and our built environment overall. Are there any questions of anyone who's on that we might be able to answer? I'm going to go to one other house as well, but happy to sort of talk through these different solutions, but answer any questions that you might have. Or is there anyone on who has been a participant in some way in the Solar Decathlon as a sponsor, as a judge, as a student, as a mentor, who wants to provide any additional color?
Well, I see Ray typed into the chat. I was a student participant in 2015 through UTSOA/TUM. And this is a completely different process from what we went through. um, I can imagine there's been so many different hurdles that students have had to go through this that are challenging in their own ways. And then I know Ray, he was involved. He said he was representing NAHB that same year, and we didn't know each other at the time, but now we do. A small world.
Ray has been a great supporter of Design Challenge and a great juror, so we appreciate his contributions. Joe, you want to do a little more and then we'll close out?
Sure. So to show how things changed over time, I wanted to show the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And so when we were going to exist on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. for the summer of 2020 as part of the Folklife Festival, in the past, when Solar Decathlon existed, we were able to take over the grassy area of the National Mall, and houses were able to be set on that, nation's front yard. In the years since, there's been some renovations and replacements of the sprinkler systems, of the approach, and the expectations around how the National Mall can be used. And so ultimately, we were going to place the houses on the gravel pathways of the National Mall, which is great. However, it had some constraints in terms of width and how this would be presented, and we wanted to make participation as accessible as possible. So you'll see this really innovative approach that was taken by the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, is for a about 12-foot wide by 45-foot long rectangular module that would ship as a single unit. But even in this small house of about 600 square feet, they were able to incorporate a really interesting courtyard with bifacial solar panels above to think about how people could bring the outside in. So there were large doors that would be able to close off this courtyard and people could enjoy some outdoor space. And so you'll see too, this was moving from different locations, but now it's located in downtown Las Vegas, and they've completed some of the furniture and the living green wall, which hadn't yet been installed when we did this tour, but you're able to see some of these different elements that a team took as they thought really about cost effective and high performance renewable energy and energy efficiency in a really small footprint as well. So this was the kitchen, dining, and living space for this design. And then this is where it's installed in downtown Las Vegas. I'll get this to load in just a moment. Ultimately, there's lots more to learn, lots more to explore. If you're intrigued and you want to find a way to engage with any of these students, please let us know. But we hope that you have learned something about building efficiency, education of our growing industry, as well as ways to communicate some of these designs and engage several thousand students and many tens of thousands of visiting public annually. So far, since this village was created, we've seen just about 15,000 unique visitors to the virtual village. We've had just over 1,000 participants in our live events in April of 2021, and we continue to grow the number of students and alumni who participate in the Solar Decathlon. So excited to find new ways to engage with students, and we are still hopeful that students, but not houses, will travel and gather together in April of 2022 as we conclude the 2022 Design Challenge and we review progress for our 2023 Build Challenge activities. Registration for our upcoming event will close on October 26th for any competing schools or teams who are interested in participating.
I'm just curious, Joe, which schools did participate this last round and are expected to participate this next one?
Sure. So in this last round, in terms of our design challenge teams, I think we had about 103 teams that were selected as participating schools. And then we had a down select about halfway through where we identified just under 70 finalists who were able to then prepare to present to those industry judges in April of 2021. So unfortunately, maybe Rachel's memory is better than mine, but I do not remember all 70 of those competing teams. But we are excited that through the design challenge, we're able to reach so many more teams annually and biannually than we were able to do with the build challenge. So where the build would have between 10 and 20 teams every 2 years, with the design challenge, we can have over 100 teams every single year who participate in the Solar Decathlon and get introduced to building science and energy efficiency as well. But ultimately for the 2020 Build Challenge, which concluded in April of 2021, these were our 9 teams. So Chile, CU Boulder, University of Denver, Netherlands, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, Kansas State, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Waterloo, and then Weber State University were the 9 teams that successfully completed construction of their houses as part of the program. We had a few more that had initially signed up and through various challenges were unable to finish, but those were our 9 Build Challenge teams. And ultimately, because we have not closed registration yet for 2022 or 2023, we don't know who we're going to have yet, but we're excited by the interest that we've heard.
I'll just say that there was not a finalist team in 2021 in Design Challenge from Texas. With that, I'll turn it over to Ray because he wanted to say hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just want to reiterate and share with the audience today how well the whole competition is run, how interconnected it is with all of the students, the faculty advisors, the industry professionals. And it has never been so timely as it is right now with our national politics and talk about climate change and everything. And at the end of the day, it's all about so many of us wanting to do the right thing. but not always knowing what the right thing is. And we get so much support through the competition and through the participants. And we'll have to work on getting the University of Texas engaged, and maybe I can help with Kendall and get something cracking here.
We'd love that. Thanks, Ray. All right, we'll turn it back to AI Austin. Thank you so much. Unless there's other questions that we missed. Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This was great. We will post this on our website, so hopefully we get some more visibility that way. And we'll also let our larger membership know about some of the resources you sent, and try to help get some more firms involved from Austin.
We'd love to have that.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much, and hope we can stay in touch.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.